All right, we're back, and we don't got all the time in the world today, like we ever do. But you ever wake up and you're bothered, and you need to get it in, you need to lift, you need to get some movement in. Tonight's one of those nights. This morning is one of those mornings. And besides, I got like an hour before I need to get ready and actually do the damn job. Yeah. So one of the things I've been wondering about, thinking about, or just going back and forth about is about, call it pruning, right? Pruning your connections with people, and sometimes you outgrow people, or to be fair, they outgrow you. Um, I think maybe the better way to put it is they they no longer serve you, right? You guys no longer serve each other, and I'm not talking about the in the sense when people get the new year, new me. I'm going to cut off all these people. Sometimes you got to prune, right? And you prune to save the plant, not to really kill it, not to destroy it. That's that's the difference here. You got to let some of that sort of the dead weight you got to cut off so the plant has a chance. I think we're the same way. Not plants like poison ivy, like that, but more or less, you get weighted down by all these connections. They end up doing you more harm as you try to maintain every single one of them. As you get older, you realize that becomes an impossible task. Um, to the point it may start holding you back from where you need to be and who you need to be. But besides that, you know, another gym workout. I think I was coming down with a fever yesterday. So I just did cardio and kind of didn't want to just bore you guys with me on the elliptical sucking wind, fighting for my life. But today, I think we're doing a little better. Besides that, show must go on. So as usual, shout out to Replay Gang. We're here a little earlier today, 20, 30 minutes, but that may enable us to get a decent workout in before we've got to go to work, then make it back in time for Sunday's live stream, which tends to be a bit more of a production than these. So we try to have fun with those. So if you can make it, make it. If you can't, that means you're just part of Replay Gang. So in essence, like we're saying, back to pruning, right? And it's not something you want to do maliciously. It's something that you have to be cognizant of. And sometimes, we kind of need to be pruned when our connection with someone starts to change. And to try to think about it, not in a malicious sense, but in a growth, debilitating sense. That the way someone starts to move doesn't really fit the way you knew them, and the way you knew them worked for your relationship, worked for who you are, worked for where you are in your life. Again, we don't want to be malicious. We just want to acknowledge that people come to your life in seasons. And sometimes the season change and you had no idea about it. Right? And it's easy to see stuff like that. You realize your conversations have changed, the frequency of the conversations have changed. What you guys actually talk about has changed. You watch, and it's hard not to watch when everyone's life is on social media, when you see every single thing. And the way they move, you just have question marks, question marks, question marks, question marks. And you're like, I'm not really sure what's happening. I'm not sure what's really going on. But they're veering off to a place you can't go, or you don't want to go, or you refuse to sort of go. But if they're happy, right? Sometimes you have to stop and say, is it me? Am I looking at this? Am I the wrong? Am I the wrong? You never want to stand in front of someone's happiness. One of my good friends says that a lot, especially when it comes to women. I don't want to get away your happiness. I mean, he especially says this when they make some ridiculous claim. My ex used to do X, Y, and Z. Okay. I'm not going to stand in the way of your happiness. You need to go find that man. I think we see a lot of that today in in the way people talk about their relationships. But in a sense, we're your friends. You got to ask yourself seriously, are you serving them? Are you being helpful to them in your relationships? Right? Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can actually hear me, because I've got no feedback on this one. And if you're going to be working out today, if you're going to be getting it in yourself, shout out to you. And if you're new here, we try to get morning workouts in where you guys can find the channel, hold each other accountable, especially when it comes to working out. Sometimes that's the simple thing that a thumbs up. Appreciate that. Sometimes that's kind of what we need here. Just knowing someone's going to be working out, knowing I kind of don't want to fall behind them. So, yeah. So specifically for men, right? When man to man, and we talk man to man, when your boy is different, when he's moved off to a different phase in life. And I think men have an easier time with this sometimes because our friendships are built differently and they maintain much differently as well. They don't require, it's like once that lane is created, it's always open, it's always an avenue. It purposely has to be shut. It purposely has to be shut down like the Van Wyck, constantly being worked on, right? But I mean, they probably have aliens buried under the Van Wyck. So that's why we can never get that thing actually completed. But men are different that way. I don't really need to be there for every birthday, for every what we would think is a milestone for people today. Men just know, like, yo, when you call upon me, I'm there. And as long as we both still have that feeling, we're both good. But that's rarely tested, right? That's rarely called into question. No one really has to ever come and say, well, what happens if this happens? That's when I think a lot of us realize we're not where we want to be or we've moved on. I had a cousin, right, that I grew up that I really cared about, and there's three siblings and three of them, and at the time, three of them, and we're all kind of paired off. Uh, we're all great in a group together, but then we also each had our individual relationships. You could always find one of us with another one. And you think that will be the same throughout your life. It's just how we were raised together, you know. But at some point in time, his desires, his moves started to differ from mine. And again, that's very natural. That's very natural. When it came time for, the birthdays or the celebrations or the deaths in the family, and people come together and you get to, reunite, and then you get the updates on how people's lives are doing. And sometimes when people realize, oh shit, you're doing better than I thought, then the asks start. Then it's like, hey, I was supposed to be the one that was successful. I was supposed to be the one that started my own business. you know, but now here I come leaning on that prior relationship and asking you for help, which is fine, right? This is the test. That one was a little off balance, but we'll continue. So that comes the test. That comes all right, let's put the friendship under the microscope. I think it's something like $5,000. And at the time, I just sold uh, my Infinity G35. Love that car. And I was more concerned about it going to a nice home than pure profit. Also, we're going up 2.5 pounds. Um, Trying to rebuild that strength to we're back somewhere in the repping 315 range. But point is, tried it, gave him the money, and then the relationship changed. Then the promises to pay back at this schedule at this time, all that changed. Nothing really worked out the way it should have worked out. And what are you supposed to do? Right? What are you supposed to do at that point in time? Hey, morning, what's going on? What are you supposed to do at that time when that relationship starts to change? It's something that for such a long time was fundamental to who you were. And same thing happens in your relationship with women. What happens when someone you relied on, it could be someone you're actually with, in relationship changes fundamentally. The way they look at you, the way they expect things from you. We're not stagnant creatures. So we're supposed to be like flexible, able to change. But sometimes that change is kind of enormous. So you have to be ready to let someone go. You got to be ready to say, okay, I wish you the best, and maybe we'll get together in another season. If you're just coming in, hit that like button. Let me know if you're working out today or any other thoughts that's been on your mind. Also, call the police if I don't make this one. So always like to try to do warm-ups right up to the top set. And this top set is 285. Hopefully in a few months it'll be 315, but here we go. great because I didn't want to be one of those people that ends up choking themselves. And if you guys can see this, there's no one in the gym. So that would have been embarrassing. Yeah. So when he asked me to borrow the money, we had a whole routine schedule. Hey, I'm going to get it back at this time. It'll look like this. I'll pay you back this much every 2 weeks, every month. And then that didn't happen. And I don't think that's very unusual for people. I think this is one of those lessons when you take into something like business. So I'm a landlord. One of the things I'm doing, I'm a landlord. And I've had several friends and friends of friends always reach out asking, do you have any units? And you have any apartments here, here, here? And the reason people say don't mix business and friends is because friends expect favors. Friends expect understanding when stuff is kind of lean. So if you're having trouble monetarily and you've got to make sense, I'm going to take care of my family. I'm going to make sure my family can eat. I'm going to pay my bills and I'm going to pay my friend back. I expect my friend to understand what I'm going through. You know, Chase doesn't understand. Chase doesn't care what you're going through. Visa, American Express, they don't care. They say you borrowed this, you owe this, period. And mind you, if I lend you money, I don't lend you money with interest. So now this is cousin. This is someone I grew up with. He expected all the favors. It was supposed to be like 4 or 5 months before, 4 months before it was basically made whole again. I think it took 9 months. It took like something like 9 months. And I was with now getting like the family involved, the pressure from everyone else. You know, it went from I'm going to pay you back this schedule to I got this deal going. I got this thing happening, or I'm going to make you part of equity owner in this business just to sort of wipe out that debt. And again, this is family. This is the favors people are expecting. And then that's why you learn your lesson. You say, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So you would think that would be the lesson learned. That would be the end of it. But then I want to say a couple of years later, same thing. He said he couldn't make payroll and he needed to borrow money. And within our family, it's all love. It's all love. Especially my siblings, they know if I have it, it's theirs. If I don't have it, I'll steal it, it'll be theirs. Hopefully, the second part, the latter part, it hasn't come to that. But the extended family, they know, okay, yeah, he's doing well. So the asks from that person, to me, seemed like audacious. We haven't really talked since that incident kind of broke things down. And you still felt comfortable coming to ask me for more or ask me again. And this time, I didn't even dignify the thing with a response. To this day, that relationship remains fractured. And the worst part of it is how you can often feel as if you're the one at fault. When you prune some of these relationships, because the connections never don't really serve you anymore, when you're trying to be healthy with boundaries and such, you're looked at as something's wrong with you, or you cut things off, that you're wrong. Like it's up to you to consciously continue to carry dead weight. I hate when you're supposed to be counting and you completely lose count. So you just do a couple extra reps anyway. So yeah, that is the conundrum when you're going through and looking to see if people still fit your life. You become the bad guy. And I sent one of my really, really good friends, this clip on this reel on IG about someone saying how when people ask you to do something that you don't want to do, how you protect that relationship because you know if you do it, there's going to be nothing but resentment. It's going to change these things. So you saying no is protecting that relationship. I think that's a fine way of looking at it. I'm saying, yeah, if you ask me of this to do this thing, it's going to change me fundamentally in the way I look at you. And I remember doing that again and again and again. You know, and this is previous relationships where, especially, you know, for men, when a woman that you love and care about is almost giving you like a laundry list of things to do on your day off. Hey, I need you to take care of this, this, and this. It's almost as if you saying no is somehow some sort of offense. You saying, nah, it's not for me. Now I'm going to relax today. And now there's a whole argument. Now, me, older, I understand how you get there. I understand how that happens. And it happens because the first time you say nothing, the next time you say nothing, you never push back until you're fed up. Sometimes you just have to do that early on. Sometimes you have to say, oh, yeah, I'm not really in the mood to do that. Hey, would you mind? Yeah, mind. I don't want to do that thing. It's not offensive. It's just, I don't think you recognize my autonomy in this, that I get to say no. We are not like unlimited favor machines. I think, especially when it's trivial, when it means nothing, when it's something you could do. If you're going to call upon me, you're going to call upon someone you care about for a favor, for something for them to accomplish. Please let it be something you can't do on your own. Please let it be something that specifically you need that person's skills and abilities and process. It has to be something like that. Otherwise, kind of risk cheapening the relationship. Yeah. Shout out to the moderators doing their thing. It's always a funny thing here when trying to speak positive, trying to help people, and haters just hate. But like I was saying, sometimes it's simple. When you respect someone, then you're very cognizant of their time, what their time means to them. But like we originally said, it becomes very easy to lean on friends, especially loved ones. And have this expectation that they'll be there to come through for you. Never really take into account what it costs them to do that. Or how this will actually potentially change the relationship. Women don't seem to care or look about stuff like that. That becomes a dangerous thing. Dangerous thing. You want me to do X, Y, and Z for you? Okay. This changes things. you know, um, I had this old coworker that we used to talk a lot about Black issues and how he wanted to, he'd always be there to talk truth to power to the higher ups when need be. And we had a legitimate incident recorded of a supervisor using derogatory uh, words towards Black people, right? We don't want to say it because I don't want you to be upset. But he wrote this in an email, one that you can really just go and reference. So the same friend had the email, right? Had it recorded, walked around, was showing people, didn't show it to me, showed it to another friend at the time. He said, look at this. So that same friend, Black guy, where'd you get this? Oh, I don't want to reveal my sources. Like he was a reporter, like he was Clark Kent. I don't want to reveal my sources. So naturally, something like that doesn't stay quiet for long. It breaks wide. I get the story from that same friend asking about the source. So I take it to my supervisor. We take it all the way to the top. I'm saying, we need to talk about this with someone. I get that going, whole thing. And I come to that same friend that started the whole thing, who had the email, do want to reveal the source. And I was talking with him. I was like, why are you protecting whoever this came from? It's not as if upper management denied this thing happened. He was more concerned with having the upper hand in terms of gossip, being in a know, rather than understanding that sometimes these issues transcend, whatever petty games and politics you're playing. But I never really saw this side of him until then. So I remember one of the last things I said to him was like, this changes things. And usually when I say that, that's not for the better. And it's not that I think I'm somehow above that fray, I'm better than him. But when we're talking about what are you going to do when it's time to get called up to the front and do the things you said you were always going to do? Well, he hid. And I would tell him, just like, someone had to fight the Nazis. Someone had to come and say, oh, this is kind of wrong. We should talk to someone about this. We should make this a bigger issue than you currently claim that it is. So that friendship was lost, and it's never really recovered. And despite little attempts, and sometimes men get like that. Instead of addressing the thing, they'll dance around it. They'll make jokes. But some things are big enough to end things, right? And to me, that was one of those things. Is where you keep that line in the sand. I had another friend who, sometimes you see what they're going through in life, and you want to be there. You want to be that friend. You want to be available there for people. So I tried to be throughout things where, he came out as bi. And I kind of assured him, like, our relationship doesn't change. You don't have to keep that secret. So I'm a New Yorker, right? I don't care what you do. Just leave me alone. All right. That's seeing you. Something happened on the subway, you stepping right over it. Good luck. Unless you're being hurt, harmed in front of me, man, do what you gotta do. Who am I to tell you what you're supposed to do with your sex life or anything for that matter? Too busy trying to run my own life. But he struggled through a couple of things. Previous relationship, baby that turned out to not be his. And I noticed, again, this is a pruning talk, that later on you realize you are the person that someone is always coming to. And then they're keeping a lot of stuff close to their chest. They're not telling you what's really going on with them, just opening up enough to indicate they need your resources and need your assistance or something. So this was October, November, where I had one of those times where I'm working and I'm working 80, 90 hours a week, and you get this kind of epiphany. You get to look and say, you're really mentally struggling, physically struggling. That's when I was still making videos, and we had the Sickie series. I think I was sick for like 3 weeks because I didn't get enough time to rest. Like, I'm walking around with Dayquil and NyQuil. I'm swigging it like it's like like I'm an alcoholic trying to get a fix. I'm not resting enough, and you get to see like, yo, no one's really checking. No one's really checking in, saying, well, no one. I mean, there are people checking in, but those people you thought were friends that were only there when they needed something from you. Otherwise, that line of communication wasn't really a two-way thing. So he had lost his job and wanted me for like a character reference. So he hit me up just again out of nowhere. Low quality. Oh, can't really see that. So he wanted me for a character witness. And then I kind of told him, no, I can't stick my neck out on this one, because I see that what ends up happening here, it's every time you need something. But even in this case, you can't be honest about what's happening. And he started giving me reasons why he played it close to the vest, why he didn't want to talk about it. But you want me to go out on a limb, but you're unwilling to tell me what am I vouching for? What happened? What was the incident? What really happened? Not what I have to get through the grapevine, but what actually happened. After that, I just left it. So all is to say, it's just like it's pruning. It's taking the time to look and see, who are you serving and are they serving you in return? Like Will Smith said, are you pissing on someone's log? Are they pissing on yours? So sometimes it's difficult for men to see stuff like that, to look at relationships in that sort of light. And I'm not calling it transactional, but you have to feed each other. You have to know that your word is your bond. That's big with us men, that respect. If you say you're going to do something, you kind of still got to do it. Not kind of, you have to do it. If you don't, then I got to put you in the corner somewhere else with the rest of them. If you say you're going to do this, then you do it. If you can't, then if I've gone out on a limb, if I extended myself, I'm gonna say That was the cost for that was the price of tuition. That's what it cost me to learn who you really are. Sometimes that's I mean, it's always expensive when it changes the relationship, when it changes the nature of relationship. And I'm not talking about money. The money part is easy, but especially if you only lend money that you could stand never getting back. But like the conversation I was just having, the collateral, when I don't charge you interest, the collateral ends up really being our friendship, the nature of the friendship. And I think if you consider how long a lot of these friendships are supposed to last, you hope they last, that ends up being the most expensive part. How much did it cost me to learn about, my cousin's sort of character? $5,000. Even if that was paid back in 9, 10 months, that was a cost. Nearly 8 years later, you don't really miss that 5,000. That's just, again, the cost of doing business on that. But would you have potentially? How much would that cost you if you didn't learn that lesson? He's not the type to only ask once. I guess you could do it differently. Next time someone comes in, they want to borrow something from you. You sit there and you draw up a promissory note to note what's collateral, what it'll cost them in the event of non-repayment. I think that probably deter most people from asking in the first place. But if that is what it needs to be, that's what it needs to be, right? Sometimes understanding that with women gets trickier because of our desire for them. We start ignoring a lot of very real facts, very real things. A lot of us as men have found ourselves in that friend zone that we literally walked into ourselves. But the only way out of that is for us to prune ourselves out. A lot of us get this lesson early on in life, and some others take longer. The internet is a vast place with all these stories, and you see men literally circling the friend zone today. But besides that, on a happier note, hopefully some of you getting in today. on the Lord's Day, before you do church and brunch and mimosas, get a workout in. All right. Or if you're like me, you got to do something quick before your other responsibilities kick in for the rest of the day. But hopefully, we'll make it in for the live stream schedule tonight, 6 o'clock. Check the channel. Hopefully see some of you guys there.